Tales of Mithrym.
Skeleton Crew, read by Lorenzo, Part 11, Back on Top. Dawn was continuing to race across the horizon as Elvin and the captain approached the two ships on their makeshift raft. The sea was quite calm and the winds had almost died away as the chill morning air cut at them. Aboard the ships, the sound of battle was still raging. High above, they could make out the figures of the sailors and of the skeletons and zombies moving this way and that, swinging swords and knives that glinted in the early light. "Steady her here, I think," the captain said, drawing her ring up from the water and grabbing a hold of a loose rope to steady them between the ships. They looked up to see teams of sailors feverishly cutting at the ropes that joined the two together. There were many now, short lengths winding back and forth between the two decks. The vessels were closer at their bows, though. Splinters in the wood of the pirate ship showed signs of its impact from the other. In a flash of pale, bleach-white movement, several skeletons could be seen leaping across and swinging at the sailors to push them back from their work. The ships creaked as the ropes tightened, then slackened between them, and a gush of wash was thrown up onto Elvin. Back on the pirate ship, the zombies had redoubled and were now pushing hard against Ducky and his team. A long length of wood held out between the two sides. They were shoving hard and giving little ground as they each attempted to push their opponents overboard. Up on the poop of the pirate ship, the figure of the first mate could be seen, shouting orders to Samson. His ghostly figure floated in the air with a quiet menace as the mate pointed over to the sailors aboard the other ship. In a moment, the figure of Samson shrank into a ball of dust that began to float on the breeze between the ships. Sailors battling hard against the massive skeletal figures found themselves shutting their eyes tight as the dust and spray cut into them. They stumbled back, wheezing then, with many a misjudged swing, leapt at their attackers again. "We have to stop them," Elvin called out. "We'll need to get their attention first," the captain nodded to him. "You take yours, I'll take mine, okay?" Elvin looked up at the great height of the ships. Still tired from the events thus far, he grabbed at a nearby rope and pulled it firm. "Okay." The captain began pulling herself up the side of her ship, swinging this way and that as she went, taking in the push and pull of the vessel itself as it swayed in the water. Elvin began to do likewise. He had trouble gaining his footing though, and found it hard work making his way up, slipping further down the ropes several times. Above him, the two crews were still fighting hard. He could make out the shapes and faces of the sailors and the skeletons on the edge of the deck. "Oi!" he called to them. With great relief, he saw the face of Derville looking down. She beamed with joy at the sight of him. "Elvin!" she called. How did you—" But she was pushed hard to the deck as the butt of a dagger slammed into her head. A skeleton stepped forward and seemed almost to grin down at Elvin. "No!" he cried, tugging hard at the rope and pulling himself up as hard as he could. It got worse though, as the skeleton then brought its dagger round and began cutting at the rope that Elvin hung from. Elvin tried all the harder to hurry up the line. His hands burnt as the rope slipped once again. He screamed in anger and pain, then heard a clatter and a commotion from the pirate ship. Another face showed itself, beaming wide. It was Ducky! The great man barked out to the sailors near him to let go of their ram, and then, with one almighty jerk, he lifted it above his head and threw it hard at the skeletons on the main ship. Elvin closed his eyes as the beam flew overhead, waiting for it to miss and fall hard on him. It did not. He gasped and sighed with relief as he saw that the skeletons were no longer trying to cut his line. On the pirate ship, though, the zombies were pushing again and had began to wrestle with Ducky and the crew. A few even made it to the edge and, spotting Elvin, began to throw knives and daggers at him. He shook and slipped again as he tried to avoid the blades, several of which stuck hard into the side of the ship. Without so much as a moment's hesitation, Elvin tried them for their strength, placing a foot on one and pushing. It was not too strong, but it gave him just enough purchase to pull himself up more. Inch by inch he made his way up the line, walking up a ladder of knives stuck into the hull, until he grabbed a hold of one of the banisters at the edge of the deck itself. With an almighty heave, he threw himself up onto the decking and lay for a moment, panting and aching all over. Suddenly he felt a hand on his shoulder. Derville was pulling him up. "Quick!" she started. "We need to—" But Elvin cut in. "We need to end this!" He smiled at her, then ran up to the poop. Looking over to the pirate ship, he saw the captain there, shouting to her first mate, then signalling across to him. This was not going to be easy, but even through the chaos of battle, they had to be heard. The two of them drew themselves up and roared to the crowds on each ship. "Stop!"
Tales of Mithrym are written by Jimmy Clephane. Mithrym is a fantasy world built for the dungeon room role-playing game system. To find out more about the world of Mithrym, or to try out the game, go to www.mithrym.com.